Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Rama 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 Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar ki jai. Sarvam Yogi Ramsuratkumar Arpanamastu.
It is by His compassion and grace that we were able to sing once again for 1 hour. We shall celebrate this grace by offering all our Nama Pushpas at His holy feet with deep gratitude. It's never by our own merit that we are able to do anything at all. Yogi Ji used to say, even to close your eyes and open, you need grace. To breathe in and out is pure grace. That we are able to see at all, we are able to hear at all, we are able to walk at all. Everything is only grace. And we should always celebrate this grace. What is celebration of grace? To be able to realize that it is grace. But for this, we wouldn't be able to do any of these things. We take many of the things very casually. We take them for granted. It's only when something goes wrong, we realize our helplessness, and then the invocation starts. And that is exactly why God gives us these trials and tribulations. Every suffering that comes up in life is for our own spiritual growth. And to be able to realize that it is also grace is our sadhana. To be able to see everything. In the beginning, We see only good things, we think that only good things that happen to us are blessings. But as we progress more and more in our sadhana, we begin to realize that everything is grace. Everything happens only by His will, and whatever happens is necessary for our spiritual growth. So along with chanting the name, it's important to practice this attitude of gratitude with the realization that everything is grace in life. This is the fastest route to the attainment of the highest state. So what does God do? He gives us, He creates some difficult situations and pushes towards this helplessness. Now we should see today how it happened in the life of a disciple of Mr. Lilozavik. Strange and mysterious are the ways of the divine. Who could scrutinize that? Who has the qualification to analyze grace? Now, Mr. Lilozavik had trained a group of people. It's a musical band. And once there was an occasion, a function in Canada, and the three people, Mr. Bob, his wife Sherry, and their son Nathaniel, they had to go to Canada, the Halifax, Nova Scotia. So they had booked the tickets already. It was only a one-day function, and they would return the next day. Now, as they started, their friends, Laura and her husband, they took them to the airport to drop them there. And as Bob was moving on, his wife Sherry had a doubt suddenly. She said, "Bob, have you brought the tickets with you?" And Bob was very, very sure of this. And there was a slight irritation in his voice. How could you ask this question? He even mentions in the article that it was pure male chauvinism that made him say like this. Here was his wife, very concerned and anxious to know, because it happens to many people. And she was only making sure. And there was no reason why he should respond the way he did. He acknowledged later it was he was completely male chauvinistic, as sometimes it's called. Now he said, after that she kept quiet. When they reached the counter, Laura dropped them and they left. When Bob and Sherry and Nathaniel, they approached the counter, the ticket counter, that's when Bob put his hand in his pocket, and to his annoyance, he found there was only one ticket, and that was Sherry's and Nathaniel and his was missing. Now what would he do? He remembered how Sherry asked, and without making sure then and there, because they could have immediately gone and brought it, and the way he answered, he remembered all that and felt terrible, but then there was nothing he could do at this time. So he approached the worker at the counter and said, "Look, the three of us, and there's the ticket for the two of them. Mine is missing. I have left it at home. What can we do now?" The counter man said, "Well, you could pay $65 and make sure you return this old ticket in 1 hour. You could arrange for somebody to go home and get it over here within an hour. And you have to pay $65 to get it." Then Bob was at a loss. What would he do? And then he was saying, "Look, you people have your own program, today's program of travelers, the table of travelers. Can you not do something?" And then the counterman said, "Okay, you give me the number of your ticket." He said, "Where would I find it?" "Well, it's at the back of the ticket." What an irony. Here he was saying the ticket was missing, and this counterman was saying, asking for the number, saying it would be found at the back of the ticket. So with a wry smile, "What are you saying?" And then the man said, "You have the traveler's table and your number would be there because you are traveling today, so you can find out. Unfortunately, when you found it, it was only the name of Sherry and Nathaniel. His name was missing." And then he realized his ticket was booked separately, and with the program, the ticket was missing. He left it on the table and forgot to add to the other tickets. He said, "Impossible. What will I do?" And then the counterman, you see, when they had reached the counter, there were 40 minutes, only 40 minutes. And the time was running out, ticking by, and they had to hurry. So the counterman said, "Okay, your wife and the son, they could go board the plane. We shall do something about your ticket." And he remembered the emergency call, emergency phone. So immediately the counterman made a call, and he was surprised that the phone worked. He made a comment to that effect. When I read it, I was surprised too, because I thought it was a common occurrence in India, but now we know it's common occurrence everywhere, because the man made the comment, "Oh, the phone is working. Very good." And then he found the number. Now by the time here, there were only 30 minutes. So he got the number, and by the time the Sherry, his wife, and his child left, and this counterman was trying to feed it to the computer. Now just 20 minutes left, and the man was feeding the number, and the screen of the computer remained white. There was nothing appearing on the screen. It looked as though it was making fun of him. And desperately, Bob was urging the man again and again, and the man was also desperately trying to feed. He said, look, every day I'm handling this machine and it's been working fine. But why is it it's not working for you? Now Bob was once again at a loss to know why it was not working for him. He was reduced to utter helplessness. Hardly 15 minutes, and here was the struggle, and they were unable to find a solution. Then Bob was thinking, what could I do? What could I do? I must find a way out. And suddenly, in a flash, he remembered something precious. Days before, he was in Thiruvanamalai with Mr. Lee Lozovic and the crew. And there, in Bhagwan's darshan, Bhagwan was looking straight at Mr. Bob and said, look, if there is any time, any difficulty you get into, call out this beggar's name. My father would rush help to you. A promise, and he never took it seriously. All because he never got into any situation where he needed such a help. So he did not bother much with the name also, the Nama chanting. And now, in the state of utter helplessness, suddenly he remembered and then started, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. You see, this flash is pure grace. What if he had not remembered it in time? So he started desperately chanting Yogi Ramsuratkumar. And then he says in the article, until then, it started with a little irritation because he found the ticket missing. And then it was a total mess. It took some time to work the emergency phone and get the number. And now the feeding is on, but still there was no response from the computer. So the irritation turned into anger, an impotent anger. He could not do anything about it. And now there was only 10 minutes. It was still not working, and the anger turned into fear. And that is when he realized his utter helplessness. Only in fear we seek refuge at the feet of the Divine. Now you see, he was desperate, anxious, and could do nothing about the situation. And in a flash, the Nama came to him, and he started. And he says at this point that very soon a strange peace took over. He says there was even a touch of joy. How strange, how mysterious. As soon as he started chanting the name, he says his tension was gone, his irritation, his fear, all negativities left him, and in their place a strange peace took over, and he found himself saying to the counterman, please don't worry, something will happen. It doesn't matter, even if you cannot get the ticket, please don't worry. And the voice, his own voice, sounded very strange to him. Minutes before, he would have happily shouted at the man because the machine was not working. And now he found himself pacifying the other man. And wonder of wonders, the computer started working. it started to respond. And then suddenly the ticket was out, the new one. The counterman was desperate now. He pushed it into the hands of Bob and said, "Run, run, and board the plane. I will see to the rest of it. Don't worry, don't stop here." And Bob ends his article with this sentence: "My running to the plane and boarding it is such a small task. It's nothing. The huge grace of remembering his name, calling out, and the strange peace and joy that filled my heart, making me realize that nothing is so important. It was all right even if I missed a ticket." And just at that moment, the machine started working. Compared to what happened, my boarding the plane is nothing. So you see, these impossible situations and our reactions to them, they reduce us to a state of utter helplessness, and you know you can no more depend upon your brain, and there is no one to help. And that is when grace enters and takes over. So we need these situations in life to connect us closely with God. And that's why Bhagwan said, whatever life brings to you, be it a joy or sorrow, know that it happens only by His will. And whatever happens is perfect. Whatever happens is necessary. Necessary for what? For your own spiritual growth. So take it as a definite blessing. This reminds me of another incident which I had narrated quite some time back, but it's fitting that we recall it here. No matter how many times we remember a Leela of Bhagwan, it is remembering him and reliving the experience of others and making it our own. And what's more, it fetches a bout of blessings, a new shower of blessings. Mariana Kaplan, another disciple of Mr. Lilozovic, in the beginning of the ashram, she stayed for nearly 6 months. At the time there was no provision for staying inside the ashram. She stayed outside and was coming to the ashram every day just to be with Bhagwan for his darshan. And she quite enjoyed his company. She sometimes even led the Nama chanting. After 6 months, she decided to go back home. So she took a taxi, came to Chennai airport. It was late evening, and the plane was only early morning. So when she approached the authorities, when the time came, they said, "Look, where is your visa?" The police, local police, you must have got a stamp from them on your visa. But we don't find anything of the sort. We are very sorry, we could not allow you. We cannot allow you to board the plane. It was as simple as that. Just imagine Mariana's reaction. After 6 months stay in the company of Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Bhagwan, now she found herself in this situation in the airport. She begged them. She was trying to explain desperately how she forgot to do it. She did not know it. And then she said it was all genuine on her part. And she was one single lady. Could they not waive it and allow her, permit her to board the plane? She even cried before them. She begged them again and again, but nothing worked. They were very strict about it and said, this is something simple you should have done, and we cannot permit it. Then she remembered Bhagwan's Nama and she started, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, please help me. I do not know what to do. I cannot go back to Thiruvanamalai, get a stamp on this. Please help. And just as she was chanting, an officer came. And as soon as he saw her, there was a surprise on his face. And then he said, oh, are you not the lady who was chanting the name of Yogi Ramsuratkumar in his ashram? I remember I came there for the darshan of Bhagwan. At the time I saw you leading the Nama chanting. I remember you very well. Now it was her turn to be surprised. As soon as she started chanting the name, here is somebody who identified her, who recognized her. And what's more, he happened to be an authority. Immediately she explained her situation, and then the officer said, okay, for the sake of Yogi Ramsuratkumar Bhagwan, I will permit you this time, but don't do it again. So he signed the paper, and then she happily boarded the plane. Just see how the grace works. It works very intelligently in the circumstances, the most suitable way, most favorably. Now, just for a minute, think, before chanting the name, how the situation was, and after chanting, just calling out a few times, how things changed dramatically. There's a world of difference between the two. At the slightest provocation, we get disturbed, we get irritated, we get angry, and then we panic. Now, at the slightest invocation, by chanting the name, see how everything changes dramatically, that everything becomes favorable. Now, again and again, the glory of the name of Bhagwan is proved. So let us remember, this name not only helps us in this outer life, in our life, in situations with people, it also gives inner transformation, because such situations strengthen our faith. They strengthen our devotion to God. And so there's a greater purpose in remembering, recalling these incidents, these episodes, The greatest miracle is this transformation, the inner transformation. And that's going on all the time. Everything that happens in our life is pushing us towards this transformation, the inner transformation. I remember another incident. We went through it some time back. The Arthur Hillcoat of Australia. To him also Bhagwan said, you remember to Bob, when he had come to Thiruvanamalai, Bhagwan looked at him straight and said it, knowing a situation would develop later on and he would have the need to call out. Now to Arthur Hillcoat, Bhagwan said very casually, just before he left, if there is any difficulty any time, just call out this beggar's name. And Arthur Hillcoat was using his name for ordinary things of life. And he thought that was the function of that. That was all there is to it, to the name. But after his sadhana, intense sadhana, and still the final experience was evasive. And again, no matter how many times he tried, how much he tried, wherever he went, it just didn't work. It would come up to a certain point and there would be a block and he would miss out on the final experience. It began to eat him up. He was unable to proceed. He was crying. For days, he was suffering. He was grief-stricken. The agony of this helplessness. And suddenly one day he remembered Bhagwan's assurance, and then in a flash he knew it's because of this that Bhagwan said so. It was not for ordinary things that he was mistaken. That Bhagwan knew that he would come to this standstill, this utter helplessness. So he just called out, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, please help. And after that, it didn't happen immediately, but soon there was a friend at his doorstep, and the friend called out, come out, let's go to the farm. So he boarded the car, and while he was traveling, there was a sudden burst of an experience. Can you imagine? It happened at the most unexpected moment. When he was sitting and getting ready for it, it never happened. But after calling out to Yogi Ramsuratkumar, the final experience happened of its own accord and at the most unexpected moment. So, the name helps us in every situation, be it of the world, outside, or the world inside. The Nama is Nami himself, and Bhagwan had said, not a single name goes waste. Every Nama does its transforming work. Like I said yesterday or day before yesterday, our true home is right inside us. And the way to the true home in many, many people is dark and menacing. We need light. The pathway And Bhagwan said, Bhagwan quoted Tulsidas once, that one should light the lamp of the Nama on the tongue. It throws a lot of light inside, and then the journey, the inward journey, becomes easier. Every Nama is one step ahead towards God. Now this Bhagwan is here in front of us, ready to help and waiting for us to call out. He says, just remember me somehow or the other. You remember even the coconut shell of this beggar. You will be able to feel the blessing. Bhagwan, there is nothing that you do not know, there is nothing that you cannot do. You are the cosmic controller. And we beg you again and again for your immediate divine intervention to release the entire world from this terrible situation that the world is facing today, and bring back normalcy in every aspect of life. Please remove the panic from the hearts of people and stop the spread of the disease, and enter some medicine, some vaccine. Now they have found one, and the vaccination drive is on. Please enter this vaccine and make it potent and kill this virus once for all. Bhagwan, may it reach all those who deserve it, who need it very badly. And we beg you once again for another huge grace for all those brave soldiers who are in the field fighting the disease now for months, despite the challenges, at the very risk of their lives. Please give them protection and a boost to our falling economy. And above all, let us realize the value, how precious your Nama is, and how important it is to chant your name incessantly. Please bless us with constant remembrance of your name and the attitude of an instrument in your hands. Please make us a fine instrument in your hands, is our repeated prayer. Jai Yogi Ramsuratkumar.